Okay, Southern Sage here, and we are wrapping up our tour of Bob, the bug out bag, or the emergency prep 3-day kit. So today we're going to talk about the miscellaneous things that didn't fit well anywhere else. So to start with, you need a way to stay warm when you sleep. So this is just a camp sleeping bag that comes in a nice waterproof carrier that gets shoved down in the pack, or it can get strapped to the pack depending on what kind you have. But you need some way to stay warm when you sleep. If you don't have sleeping bags, or you can't afford to buy one, blankets work, especially if you have wool blankets, because wool will stay warm even when it's wet, right? Because again, we have to think about the fact that if we're having to evacuate on short notice, about half the things that would make that happen involve rain. So we got to deal with wet. All right, so you need some way to stay warm when you sleep. You need something to sleep in. So you can go a couple of ways with this. I do have a tent that is strapped to my husband's pack because it's kind of heavy, and so he gets to carry that. That is big enough for both of us. But I also include a tarp in this kit because you can use a tarp over a branch to keep yourself dry, right? Or to put down on the ground under you so that if the ground is wet, you aren't wet when you put your blankets or your sleeping bag on top of it. So something like that is important to have. On the wet front, you also want a poncho. So this is a nice, I don't know, it's like a $20 rain poncho. One size fits all that's pretty reasonable quality. I upgraded fairly recently. Prior to that, I had this garage sale find poncho that happens to be big enough to fit everyone in the family. Right, so it doesn't need to be super expensive, but you need something to keep the rain off of you and that is big enough to cover the pack on your back. Now, barring this, you can also just straight up use trash bags. Right, so big black trash bags are great. You should have them in the kit regardless, because you should not leave any trash behind, right? That's just good practice. They make a great poncho in a pinch. They also make a great thing to put wet stuff in, right? So again, not everything that we're talking about here will fit in the little Ziploc bags that we covered with first aid stuff. So this works if your clothes get drenched and you need to put a whole outfit in something and stuff it in the pack so that it doesn't get everything else wet. Okay, so have a handful of black trash bags in the pack. Have work gloves that fit you, okay? So many of the situations that we're talking about where you're leaving, especially if you're leaving on foot, but even if you're driving, could cause downed limbs, situations where you need to pull sticks, right? You need to do physical work that you may or may not be used to. So you need work gloves to protect your hands, okay? Something we only think about when we don't have it, toilet paper. You should have toilet paper in a little baggie in your pack. You will be very, very sad if you don't. Okay? So, very important. This pack, I also invested in a used air mattress that's self-inflating. So it's kind of a luxury item, but having camped where I slept on the ground, this is a thing that if I were actually having to hoof it for a couple of days, I would really, really like. And it's not that heavy. So I have a little air mattress in this pack. Other things that you want to think about, so in addition to the tent and the tarp, you may want to have, oh great, my mind just went blank. Oh well, it'll come back to me or it won't. So a shovel, a small shovel can be really handy. They make fancy ones if you want to put money into it, where part of the blade is also serrated where you can use it as a saw. And they make shovels for packs like this that fold in half so they don't take up very much room. They're like an oversized trowel. That is a handy tool to have because there are plenty of situations with down limbs, with down power lines, with situations where you may need to bury some human waste, for example, where a shovel is really cool. I don't know. There are a million other tools that you could get to go in a bug out bag. If you look it up online, there are lots of companies that would like you to spend a whole lot of money on this thing. But I feel like if you collect all of the things we just talked about, you're going to have a pretty solid pack and you don't need to spend a whole lot of money on it. I would strongly recommend you go ahead and start getting this stuff together. If you don't have the fancy backpack, throw it in a duffel bag, right? Use what you have and upgrade as you go. But start getting these things collected. I can tell you that having this all in one place has helped me in a pinch where I'm like, crap, I really need a match. And I know there's one in my pack, so I can go get it. Or, crap, where's that Leatherman? Because I need it right now. Okay? Now, there's one other category of tools that are everyday carries. So these are things you have on your person all the time. So, for example, I have a pocket knife in my purse. If I'm bugging out, my purse is going to go in the top compartment of this bag because it also has my ID. It's got some extra chapstick. It's got all the things that live in a purse for everyday living. So it's coming with me. And so anything that I know is in that purse, I don't have to duplicate in the bag. Okay? So think through that. If there are things that you have on your person all the time, then you don't necessarily have to duplicate them into the bug out bag. But you do have to remember to put the purse in the bag when you go. Also, medications. Whenever we talked about hygiene and first aid, I didn't mention prescription medications. So if you're taking those all the time, it can be very hard to get extra prescriptions to put in a bug out bag. It can be worth asking your doctor if they'd be willing to write an extra month of prescription and just have it on hand and cycle it through, and then put it in a place where you know you can just grab it if you have to go and throw it in the top of the bag. So if you're taking regular prescription medications, that's a very important thing that you need to plan for in this situation, right? If your health cannot go 3 days without those medications, you need to make a plan to have them available. And recognize that medications expire, so you need to rotate those through. All right, I think that concludes our tour of Bob, our bug out bag. Let me know what questions you have. Let me know what you think. I always enjoy your comments. Like, subscribe. Let me know what you'd like to hear about next week. Thanks. Bye.